Mr. President, Senator Robb, Superintendent Berg, Mr. Mayor, and the wonderful students from T.C. Williams, welcome. All Americans recognize the importance of safe and secure schools, where students and educators alike can confidently pursue the primary business of schools, educating our students. Data on school violence being announced today by the Department of Education is both reassuring and yet cautionary. 43% of U.S. public schools reported no crime incidents for the 1996-1997 school year, and an additional 47% of schools reported no serious violent crime. Only 10% of schools reported at least one serious violent crime. This research shows that for the most part, our schools are safe places. It is also true that some schools have problems, even serious problems, with crime and violence. And these problems must be addressed. Even one crime in a school, whether violent or not, whether against student or educator, is one crime too many. For years, we have issued reports on school safety, containing information gathered at different times and for different purposes, reflecting different information sources and methods of presentation. While these reports, such as the report issued today, provide important information, we have never had a comprehensive national report on school safety. To tackle this problem, Mr. President, you directed that starting this September and every year thereafter, the Department of Education and the Department of Justice, for the first time, will produce a comprehensive annual report on school safety, a model of which we are delivering to you today. Based on the most important available data, the report will present an accurate national picture of school safety to guide us in our efforts to make schools even safer. The report will show key statistics and trends on drug use, weapons, and gangs at school, among other topics, so that we can analyze the progress we are making. This report will also describe measures that some schools have already taken to promote safe school environments. Finally, along with the report, we will provide parents, teachers, and students with a checklist of concrete things that they can do to evaluate and to enhance their own school's level of safety. We do know that we can significantly improve the level of safety in our schools, and we have learned a very great deal in the past few years about what works to prevent violence and problem behavior in our schools. Many of the strategies in the programs are choices for local schools and school districts, but we in the federal government want to help in as many ways as we can and be a true partner in this effort. For that reason, Mr. President, today we are pleased to kick off a special school safety feature of our community-oriented policing program. As a result of Senator Robb's splendid leadership and vision in this area, $17.5 million has been allocated for a new and innovative community policing program, which is designed to improve the safety of the nation's elementary and secondary school children and to reduce crime in or near school grounds. Mr. President, through promising programs which are already at work, through new projects such as the COPS program and the annual report on school safety, I look forward to the day when schools will be safe places for all of our children. It is now my pleasure to introduce Senator Chuck Robb.
Thank you, Attorney General Reno. I am delighted to join you and the President and Mr. Berg and some outstanding students from T.C. Williams High School that hopefully will be referred to momentarily, and a mutual colleague of the President's and mine from our days as education governors together, now Congressman Mike Castle, who was then Governor Castle. We were all privileged to work with your Secretary of Education, Dick Riley, on education a decade and a half ago, and I'm delighted to be here on this particular day. I am an enthusiastic supporter of the President's plan to help build and renovate schools and help states and localities hire 100,000 new teachers. Mr. President, I thank you for your leadership in this crucial area and your willingness to fight for America's children and their future. Like you, Mr. President, I want to make sure that the schools we help build and renovate and all schools throughout the nation are safe schools. The President had a great idea a few years ago to help put 100,000 cops on the streets. We want to take the success of the community policing program into our schools to make them safer as well. That's why I worked to include the amendment that the Attorney General just referred to of the $17.5 million in an appropriations bill last year, and to make that available for the COPS program to combat violence in our schools. The federal government has got to be a good partner to states and localities as we all work to fight violence in our schools. Our schools should be oases for learning, not outlets for hate. Hope and opportunity, the optimism of our young should never be overshadowed by violence and fear. Schools should have books, not bombs. Teams, not gangs. Hope, not fear. Good schools are safe schools. And I am pleased to introduce the superintendent of schools in Alexandria, Virginia, Herb Berg, whose system has a model program for creating safe schools, combining the efforts of police, school teachers, and community. Mr. Berg.
I'm the proud superintendent of these young people, and our mayor shares in our community pride in what they achieved just a few weeks ago in winning the science contest in the state of Virginia. Alexandria City Public Schools, by all measures and all standards, is a true urban school district. Our high school serves children born in over 90 countries around the world and who speak over 50 different languages. Many races, religions, nationalities, and cultures are all present together at T.C. Williams High School. When we speak with our seniors each spring prior to their graduation and ask them to reflect on the most significant and important positive things that happened to them at the high school, they always refer to the rich cultural diversity that they experienced at T.C. Williams High School. Accounts in the newspapers and other publications overemphasize the negative conditions in our urban high school. On the whole, T.C. Williams and others in our district operate with an orderly atmosphere where students who come to school each day can expect to receive an effective instructional and safe schooling. We believe the reasons for this are quite simple. Number one, our Board of Education has identified safe and secure schools as one of our highest priorities. Number two, the principal and staff believe that our students must feel safe and secure in their classrooms and their schools in order for them to learn effectively. Our faculties and all who work in our schools are committed to providing a safe environment for every student. Number three, the Alexandria schools enjoy a positive working relationship with the Alexandria City Police Department. Number four, we have hired adult hall monitors who are among the persons that we rely on to keep our schools safe. These monitors are parents and grandparents who live in our community. Many have worked in our school system for more than 20 years. They have developed relationships with students, parents, staff, and have served as our coaches, our mentors, and advisors to our students. Number five, it's important to note that 3 years ago, the Alexandria City Public Schools established a zero-tolerance policy with regards to weapons and drugs. This expectation was widely communicated to our students, their parents, and our community. In the first year of implementation, there was a notable increase in the number and frequency of suspensions and expulsions from schools for weapons and drugs. But once the students realized that the adults in their life were serious about this policy and committed to its implementation, a decline in the number of these incidences occurred in the second year and has continued that decline in this third year. The number of incidences have declined where suspensions are concerned 40% since we instituted this policy. We believe this decline reflects our students' adjustment to our adult policy. Number six, we keep our schools open after school to provide tutoring, supervised study halls, and after-school daycare for our younger students. And finally, our political, civic, business, and faith community leaders are regular tutors and mentors in our schools. The young people who accompany me today are proud students of T.C. Williams High School, regardless of when they joined us or from where. They've been welcomed into a great urban public school system that gives its highest priority to offering quality instruction, challenging learning opportunities, and enriched cultural, academic, and social experiences in a safe, inviting school. These fine students and me take this pleasure in introducing the President of the United States, a strong, steadfast supporter of public schools in America. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Superintendent Berg. Madam Attorney General, Senator Robb, thank you so much for your efforts. Congressman Castle, thank you. Mayor Donnelly, welcome, and I want to say a special word of welcome to all the students. I'm glad you're here today, and I thank you for the example you're setting for students throughout our country. I also want to commend the students who were the winners of the State Math and Science Award earlier this month. This school is proving that by taking the right kind of action, working with law enforcement, enforcing zero tolerance for guns and drugs, involving parents, establishing discipline and order as primary goals, we can keep our schools safe and give our children the chance to reach their highest potential. Now, in less than 650 days, all of us will enter a new century and a new millennium. At a time when we're doing everything we can to prepare our children for the opportunities of that new century. At a time when we know that the body of knowledge that human beings have is doubling every 5 years, and therefore education will be more important than ever before. We cannot let violence, guns, drugs stand between our children and the education they need. For more than 5 years, we've worked now to make our schools places of learning, not fear. We have worked to strengthen and expand the Safe and Drug-Free Schools program, to enforce zero tolerance for guns in schools, to encourage communities to crack down on truancies, to support those who wish to adopt school uniform policies. Wearing uniforms instead of gang colors in many places is helping to keep our children safe. It was just a little over 2 years ago that I went to Long Beach, California, the first large school district to adopt a school uniform policy. Since then, Secretary Riley and the Department of Education have worked to help those schools that wanted to do that. Yesterday, the New York City School Board announced that it would adopt a school uniform policy in all its elementary schools. I applaud them for taking this important step, and I predict it will have very beneficial consequences. Our budget makes an unprecedented commitment as we are moving into balance for the first time in 30 years to invest for our future by raising standards and improving education for all our children, and to make our schools safer. We know schools with the biggest discipline problems also have the highest rates of violence. Very often there are simply too many students in too few classrooms with not enough teachers. Our budget, as Senator Robb said, will help to reduce class sizes to an average of 18 students per class in the first, second, and third grades, with 100,000 more teachers and funds to build or rehabilitate 5,000 schools. Perhaps even more important in the short run on the violence issue, and I was glad to hear Mr. Berg talk about this, it will quadruple federal support for after-school programs to keep children in school in wholesome, positive environments. We know that most children who get in trouble do so between the time school lets out and their folks get home from work. So I applaud you for what you're doing, and I hope now, if this budget passes, there'll be many, many more schools until every school in America will offer this kind of community support to our young people and their families. The fundamental issue here is that we do not need to, and we must not ever have to make a choice between safety and high standards, between crime-free schools and modern classrooms. We must do both. I regret that the present budget reported out by the majority in Congress does not embody that kind of commitment to education in our future. does not embody the recommendations I made in the State of the Union address. Today, I ask the Republican leadership to join with the leaders of the other party, to get with the Democrats and to work with the White House so that we can once again, as we have in the past, pass a bipartisan budget that puts education beyond politics and says yes to safer schools, yes to new teachers and smaller classes, yes to modernizing our schools, yes to investing in high standards. We need to have a budget that says yes to our children's future. The nationwide report on school safety that is being released today by the Attorney General and the Secretary of Education shows clearly that the majority of our schools are safe, free of violent crime. That is good news. It also shows, however, that too many of our children face a far more frightening reality every time they walk through the schoolhouse door. In 1996 alone, there were more than 10,000 physical attacks or fights with weapons in schools, 7,000 robberies, 4,000 rapes and sexual assaults. The threat of such violence hangs over children's heads and closes their minds to learning. When children have to worry more about guns and drugs than math and science, when teachers are more concerned with maintaining discipline than achieving excellence, when parents would rather keep their children at home than risk their safety at school, then we know we must do more. And if there is even one school in America where that is the case, we must all be committed to change it. We already know the difference community policing makes. Since we began to help our local communities to put 100,000 more community police officers on our streets, crime has dropped to record lows all over our country. Indeed, in the nation overall, crime is at a 24-year low. I thank Senator Robb for his sponsorship of the $17.5 million in the balanced budget bill, which is now being awarded today in grants to communities, parents, and law enforcement groups to put these community policing strategies to work in our schools, to stop violence before it starts. The more we know about school violence, the more we can do to ensure our children's safety. Last December, I asked the Attorney General and Secretary Riley to develop an annual report on school safety. Today, I'm pleased to accept their framework for these reports. From now on, at the beginning of every school year, parents and principals, lawmakers and law enforcement will have a valuable tool that tracks school violence, gives examples of school programs that are working, and suggests actions parents can take to make their children's lives safer at school. We know one of the best ways to reduce violence is to involve the young people themselves. In the last several years, AmeriCorps volunteers particularly have helped hundreds of students to resolve their conflicts peacefully. This adds to AmeriCorps' remarkable record of helping improve our schools and communities through volunteer service. Parenthetically, I want to say that today we had an announcement up on the Hill with the First Lady participating that we are sending legislation to Congress to extend our National Service Program into the 21st century. I hope Congress will support AmeriCorps as it has in the past. Let me say finally, as Mr. Berg said so eloquently, we know that all of our schools need parents to play the primary role in their children's safety, both in the school and in the home, and when necessary, in the neighborhood. Today, I ask all our parents who are concerned about this to become involved in your communities and your children's schools, to join a community policing partnership. Senator Robb got the budget. We're releasing the funds. We can talk about what works, but in the end, real live American citizens are going to have to show up in every school in this country to make this work. You know, if you look at these young people here today, if you think about the remarkable achievements of this fine school we honor, if you imagine the interesting, fascinating lives they can have, and you remember that as they have good lives, it will make all the rest of our lives better. It is clear that we all have a responsibility to ensure that their educations will be safe. We can do this, and America's future in the 21st century depends upon it. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you got some votes for getting the job corps extended, or the AR corps extended.